All right, guys, what's going on? I'm Jason Whitrock, and I'm lucky and fortunate to be sitting next to Jimmy Moore. We are at the Low Carb USA conference, and he was nice enough to spend some time with us here. So, Jimmy, you're a huge inspiration. You know,
Thank you.
You're a leader. When I first got into the ketogenic diet, I read your book, Keto Clarity, and it really, the way you put everything, how you simplify everything, really kind of, it's extremely valuable, and you've helped thousands and thousands of people. So again, thank you for spending some time with me. So
Thank you.
Yeah, so you're an author. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your story. For those of you who don't know, many of you obviously do know Jimmy, but for those of you who don't, if you would, please just share your story and how you got into all this stuff.
Sure. So it was back in 2003. I was a 410-pound man, was on 3 prescription medications, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, breathing issues. I was a ticking time bomb at the age of 32. Now, I grew up, you know, my mom was a single mom, and I had an older brother and a younger sister. We were all fat. Mm-hmm. So we've always had that. I probably have a little bit of that obesity gene, if you want to call it that. In other words, it's harder for me probably than most people, and I'm sure a lot of people watching right now, they're like, yeah, that's my family too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so the problem was we all ate kind of crap, like what I call crappy garbage. So junk food galore. Can I get a witness, anyone?
Garbage, you called it garbage. Yeah,
and
that's
so
great.
crappy garbage. And so anyway, I get to the age of 32 and I realize I need to make a change. And it wasn't like I hadn't realized that before, but I had always thought if I wanted to lose weight, I had to cut my calories and cut my fat specifically. And so when I kept trying to do that, I was always hungry, I was always irritable. My wife Christine will tell you that I was not a pleasant man to be around, and I'm a pretty happy-go-lucky kind of guy in general, but that diet changed me. I now know why, because the fat was so essential.
Yeah.
So my mother-in-law gave me a diet book, mother-in-law, for Christmas. Thanks, Mom. Yes, I'm fat. Thank you very much. Appreciate you stating the obvious here. But she gave me Dr. Atkins' New Diet Revolution, and I thought, okay, let me read this book. And so between Christmas and New Year's that year, 2003, I said, okay, let's read it. I thought this guy was whacked out of his mind. He's a cardiologist, and he's telling people to eat more fat.
Yeah.
Doesn't he know that gives you heart disease and clogs your arteries and all the things that we believe? And he says, eat less carbs. Well, where are you supposed to get energy from? But I came to the conclusion that every diet I ever tried failed. And it wasn't just a failure of the weight loss. I would lose weight, but I'd end up getting it back. But it was a failure to be sustainable and to help me in my health. And that's one thing in my message now that I try to emphasize heavily is it's not about weight loss. That's a nice side effect of being healthy, but it's about health gain. And if we focus on the health gain aspect, down the road, you should see the weight loss aspect come as well. And there's a lot of things that can impact weight beyond your diet, and I'm going to write a book about that someday. But that was kind of my journey. So January 1st, 2004, I started the Atkins diet and lost 40 pounds or 30 pounds the first month. And I felt so energetic. I mean, just quickly the energy came on. By month 2, I lost another 40 pounds. I had gone to the gym because I was like, I had all this energy, I had to get it out. So for me, the gym was 10 minutes on the treadmill a day at 3 miles an hour, which is obscenely low, by the way, if you've ever done any cardio. But I tell people I was weightlifting.
Yeah.
Because I was lifting all this weight. My legs are sexy, man, I'll tell you what. So I did that, and then by the end of 100 days, 100 pounds gone, I thought, you know what, there's something to this. And it wasn't just, again, just the weight loss that I was paying attention to. I came off of that breathing medication. I came off of the high blood pressure medication. I was getting dizzy getting up off the couch because my blood pressure dropped so well. Eventually came off the cholesterol medication, and by the end of that year lost 180 pounds.
Wow.
Totally changed my life in more ways than just physical. I actually made a career out of this. So now I professionally blog and podcast and write books for a living. If you'd have told me when I was 15, 16 that you would be one of the big names in the health industry, I would not have believed you.
Yeah, I really think that's awesome how you took your experience, your story, and then really used it as a way to change other people's lives. We were talking before about the default diet. Whenever somebody, you know, you think about the millions of people around this country who decide today.
Around the world.
That want to change their life. They're ready. Today is their day. And they go to the default of calories in, calories out.
And low fat.
And low fat, and they just go off what we've been fed
and
what
exercise
we've
till
been
you drop.
taught, and exercise till you drop. They run themselves into the ground. Can you really quickly explain how we got to the whole calories in, calories out thing?
Oh my goodness!
Is it easy to explain? I know it's a whole history of.
Well, there's a lot of history, and I gave a whole talk at this conference about it. So summarize a 45-minute talk in 1 minute.
Keys, but.
So there was this scientist in the 1950s named Ansel Keys who decided to do a study that would basically validate his own theory. His theory was saturated fat and cholesterol would raise inflammation in the body and would cause a heart attack. And so he promoted that as fact, and he fudged some numbers to make that happen. And unfortunately, that then got echoed by other people. It made it into the highest levels of government. They paid off researchers to squelch that really it was about the sugar and the carbs and not the fat.
And we're stuck with it
And
now.
so we're still stuck with it here in 2017.
And we see leading researchers and scientists and, popular figures like you just fighting against all of the years and years of misinformation.
But I sense it's changing.
I
sense people have woken up thanks to books like Wheat Belly and Grain Brain
true.
and The Case Against Sugar, the Gary Taubes' new book.
The conspiracy theories, it's over, it's coming to an end.
The internet, I think, had a big role in that, because before the internet came along, all this stuff was secret. Well, now you've got podcasts like mine that are making an influence. You've got people being able to access information like never before. The internet was truly, truly the turning point for making this change, which gives me hope that within the next 10, maybe 15, 20 years, we're going to see major changes where what we're talking about here today, more fat, less carbs, is actually going to be more codified as the default diet to go to.
Correct. And so really quickly, for those people who do think it is calories in, calories out, that it's just as easy as eat whatever you want as long as you're under by 500 calories a day, you're going to magically lose weight. So when it comes to carbs and how bad they are and how devastating they are, can you explain a little bit about insulin resistance? Why are you predisposed to gain fat, and why can I eat all the carbs I want and not gain fat? We're like on the opposite ends of the spectrum.
Absolutely.
It's true. And there's a reason for that. And if you could just kind of go quickly into why carbs are bad and why people who want to lose weight need to start by restricting carbohydrates.
Great question. So I will start off by saying all carbs aren't bad. So you want vegetables.
Yes, good.
You want green, leafy, non-starchy, primarily vegetables. The problem comes in when they've promoted grains.
Yeah.
So anything, bread, pasta, even the so-called whole grains.
Yeah.
There is really no such thing as a whole grain. If you ever tried to eat like a real whole grain, you would break your teeth. It's so hard.
Yeah.
They have to grind that up so much, and in that processing, that's highly inflammatory for the body, and it raises this hormone called insulin.
Yeah.
And so what happened was 410-pound Jimmy Moore used to eat pizza and pasta and fast food and all these things.
Carbs.
Coca-Cola. I drank 16 cans of Coca-Cola.
Blood sugar through the
day.
roof, insulin through the roof.
Oh my gosh. And so after a while, the body goes, whoa, 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 we can't handle this anymore. So when you start eating foods that are even healthy, the body goes, well, you've treated me bad for so long. The insulin's like, screw you. I'm not going to really give you, the response that you need. And so therefore you have a hyper response to that. So that's people like myself, whereas people like you haven't done the damage yet, and you're young
and
still.
genetically, I can tolerate it. I believe there's a genetic component
there is
to
some
it. But like
some
you
of
said,
genetic.
people are abusing the carbohydrates and they're becoming more resistant to it. So now even when you eat just a bite of a bagel, huge insulin response.
I could smell a bagel.
And you're going to store fat. It's interesting.
And for you, you're still young, so when once you get past 40, if you're over 40 and you're watching this, you probably need to be on some kind of at least a low carb diet, if not a full-fledged ketogenic diet.
And the danger is when eventually the pancreas just says we've had enough of this abuse, and that's when you get diabetes.
Yes.
And that's
worse.
And that's the real problem. And the diabetes rate in this country is astronomical. I mean, half of America is pre-diabetic. Childhood diabetes
it's sickening.
it's like 20 years ago, a kid with diabetes would be unheard of. Now it's like, and you know why? Because kids are walking around you walk around this hotel right now and you see kids drinking sodas, candies. It's such a huge part of their life, and it's and it's scary. So we've covered why carbs are bad. That's the first obstacle when it comes to changing your life. You have to understand, accept a low carb lifestyle. The opposite, the next hurdle is understanding that fat does not make you fat. Because like we said before, if you take out the carbs, your body doesn't have any energy at all, so it wants to burn fat. You have to give it fat. But there's a lot of people that are watching this right now that have been told for the last 30 years, fat's gonna kill me. You know, I mean, how do you get over that hurdle, and how do you kind of embrace the fat? The fat phobia.
Yes.
How do you get over the fat phobia?
That is the big thing.
Was it tough for you?
Oh, when I first started, keep in mind, I grew up a child of the 80s.
Yeah.
And the 80s was when like low fat was at its mecca. I mean, everybody and their mama and my mama were doing a low fat diet. And so I learned that growing up. It was like instilled in me as absolute fact. You had to cut your fat. Fat was going to clog your arteries. And so for me, it was just came to the point of, you know what? I feel better when I'm consuming the fats. I had to see it for myself. And if you're skeptical, I would highly, highly encourage you, try it. Now, when we're talking fat, we're talking mainly saturated fats. They're the healthy ones.
Let me stop you there.
Please.
So, because everybody's going to say saturated fat.
Right.
It's going to give me a heart attack. The studies show it's going to clog my arteries. I'm going to die. You know, avoid the butter and things like that. You're saying saturated fat is okay. It's actually a preferred energy source?
In the context of a low carb diet, yes. In the context of a high carb diet, that saturated fat can actually exacerbate the carb reaction. So that's why they say those things. But the problem is what they push as fat as healthy are the vegetable oils. The soybean oils, the cottonseed oil. Just pick up any processed anything. Mayonnaise, for example, just turn that over in the back. You'll see the main oil is either cottonseed oil or soybean oil for the most part. Even if it says made with olive oil, you read on the back, it's still soybean oil. Number one, they put a little bit of olive oil so they can get away with marketing. I could go for hours about the marketing problems that they do on products. But
that's another video.
But fat is truly where you get the satiation. It's where your brain health, you know, because 70%, you're fat heads, by the way. All of you watching this right now, you're fat heads. So your brain is 70% fat. So if you're not feeding it the basic tools for rebuilding that fat, guess what happens? And you see it all the time with vegans online. They get angry and they have mood problems and they lash out. And it's because their brain is literally screaming at them, we want more fat.
I've heard that. That's very interesting. Like when you get a signal when you're on a high carbohydrate diet, you have to eat all the time. It's a way of your body saying, you're not giving us the fat.
You're not giving me what I want.
We're going to make you go out and get more until we get what we want, which is the fat.
That's right.
Okay, so the saturated fat, not a problem. You can embrace it. What other kind of fats do you use in your diet?
So saturated fats, the butter, the coconut oil, the lard, the full fat meats and cheeses, cream, that kind of thing. Mono unsaturated fats is the other healthy fat. So that's the avocados, the avocado oil, macadamia nuts, macadamia nut oil, olives, and olive oil with a caveat, because a lot of the olive oil is sold on the market. Make sure it says 100% olive oil, otherwise you're getting some of those crappy oils we talked about.
And so I'm going to lead me in. Give me one sec here. So we've got the book Cholesterol Clarity, which is a follow-up from...
I've heard of that book. What the HDL's wrong with my numbers.
Excellent book. So, you know, the number one question I get on my YouTube channel, I'm sure you've gotten it on your podcast and almost everything you've done, is cholesterol. Will this diet, how does it affect cholesterol? So if you could just quickly kind of give people it's like a myth. It's another one of those myths. It's a big thing, and I don't expect you to crush it all right in this one video, but can you just kind of rest everybody's fears on the cholesterol problem?
If I could summarize what we wrote in Cholesterol Clarity in a very brief amount of time, is stop worrying about cholesterol, because it's not the cholesterol that's the enemy. Cholesterol is kind of like the firefighter. Going to the scene of a fire. So what's the fire? The fire is inflammation. And so if you have inflammation in your body, you are at risk for disease. If you have no inflammation in your body, you can't possibly have disease. And
what causes the inflammation?
So inflammation can be raised by a lot of things: stress, sleeplessness, all kinds of things. But in our diet and in our lifestyle-ish type things, carbs is the number one instigator, specifically wheat and grains and sugar. Those are highly, highly inflammatory. And then the other thing are the vegetable oils. So the very oils that they tell us are heart healthy, all the soybean and cottonseed and all those things that they say, eat more of this, canola oil, that's the very thing that's raising your inflammation. So between carbs and vegetable oils, that's just about all of the American food supply.
Yeah, right.
If you go on the supermarket shelves and look at processed foods, you're going to find one or the other or both of those things. And so this inflammatory state, and it's a low-level inflammatory state. That's the thing. People say, well, I don't feel bad. Well, it's kind of like the slow boiling of a frog. The frog doesn't notice he's being boiled until he's dead.
Yeah.
And that's what happens to us when we're consuming these foods again and again. We start to feel a little bit bad, but we don't really feel, it's subclinical is what they call that, where you feel a little bit bad, but you're not quite to the sick level. And then the doctor puts you on some medication to try to manage that, and then you get worse, and he never realizes it's a nutrition problem. And so it's not about cholesterol.
Yeah.
Cholesterol, I could care less what your cholesterol is as long as it's not too low. Too low cholesterol is much, much worse than too high a cholesterol. So you want to increase your cholesterol, but you want to lower inflammation. And you lower the carbs.
That's the source
you lower
of the
the
problem.
vegetable
That's
oils.
the root of the problem.
That's right. And you lower the stress in your life. Do all of those things and you keep that low. So how do you test for that inflammation? There's a lot of tests. The one I love the best is called HSCRP. You can ask your doctor for it. It costs about $50 if you pay out of pocket. And it should be covered under any kind of like
good to know.
physical that you would have done. And ask for that. What you're looking for is ideally, or definitely under 3, and ideally under 1. Last time I had mine run just a couple weeks ago, it was like 1.2.
So when people first start off this diet, I've had them kind of come to me and say, yo, I went to the doctor and my cholesterol went up.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between the particle sizes and things like that. So that necessarily wouldn't alarm you when you start the ketogenic diet and all of a sudden your cholesterol numbers are raised.
Yeah.
Because I think people get freaked out when they see the raised numbers. So you're saying not an issue, everything's fine.
You know what I like to do? I like to keep it simple.
Yeah, me too.
So LDL and total is what your doctor pays attention to.
Okay.
But if you're going to look at one number, just one number on your cholesterol panel, I want you to look at triglycerides.
Okay, yep.
If you look at triglycerides and they're under 100, it means you're doing a good job of keeping your carbohydrates restricted to the level that's right for you. It's going to be different. Like you can eat 100 grams of carbohydrates, whereas I have to eat maybe 25 grams to get the exact same triglycerides.
Yep.
If you want to tighten them up, if it's like 98, 78, whatever, and you want to get them under 70 is the optimal. That's kind of a good goal to shoot for. So look at your triglycerides, because if your triglycerides are low, your HDL, which is that good cholesterol, will be high, and it's the ratio between those two numbers that truly tells you your state of heart health, your level of inflammation. So get those tests run, and you can't go wrong.
Perfect. Well, it just in closing, I really, I think thousands and thousands of people have been touched by your work. You really give people hope. And there's a very famous quote that I live my life by, and that is, a leader is a dealer in hope. And I see you as a leader in this industry. You're so well respected. I appreciate everything you've done, and I know everybody out there that you've inspired appreciates what you've done as well. So let people know where they can find you, your books, your website, just because I know they're going to be wanting a lot more information. So just give you a chance to just kind of let everybody know where they can get more information.
I need an oxygen tank for all the sites and the books now.
I know. Get ready, guys.
Actually, the very easiest way to find me, just Google my name. It's Jimmy Moore.
Yep.
The first 2 pages on Google is all my stuff.
Yeah.
Although you will find an opera singer named Jimmy Moore. You go on his website and the first thing you hear is, oh, it's like, that's not me. I can sing that way, but that's not me. livinglavitalowcarb.com is the website. But I wrote Keto Clarity, Cholesterol Clarity, the Ketogenic Cookbook, and the Complete Guide to Fasting, and then the podcast, the Living La Vida Low Carb Show, Keto Talk and Fasting Talk. All of those are on iTunes. All the books are available on Amazon as well as wherever books are sold.
And I will put all the links in the description below.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Hope you guys enjoyed. Jimmy Moore here at the Low Carb USA Conference. Keep up the good work, guys, and much love.